when you look at all of the memory books out there in that commons area, and you know, I don't know if all of you had a chance to look at it, but I spent some time last night looking at them. I had one of those moments about just how lucky I am to be around these kids every day, and how hard they work, and what they do for me and for Mrs. Screen and for Mrs. Martell, and now I'm getting emotional. I forget what I was going to say and everything, but thank you for coming today. Again, I look back, sometimes I find myself looking at the beginning of my teaching career, and when I started teaching, it was hard to get a job as a teacher. It was like dog eat dog out there, because there were not very many positions open, and there were a lot of teachers graduating from high school. A little bit different than it is today. And so I was fortunate enough to get a job at North Central. And for 12 years I worked at North Central, and for 5 of those first 12 years, I would get a pink slip at the end of the year, every year, that saying that I was probably going to be laid off the next year, because there were tough times back then. So I never thought about applying at Kingsford, because it was all based on seniority at that time. And so 12 years into my teaching career, I decided to apply at Kingsford, and I applied for an elementary position at Woodland. And at the end of the interview, Mr. Holmes, is Mr. Holmes here today, by the way? I don't know if Mr. Holmes is here. I thought I saw him. Well, anyways, I owe him a great deal of gratitude. Right at the end of the interview, he said, would you maybe be interested in a middle school position? English position at the middle school, and because we had a teacher who happens to be here, who was taking a year off. Mrs. Nash, I owe you too. So it was supposed to be a 1-year position here at the middle school, and then it became more than that. And I said yes, that would be my happy place. Teaching 8th grade English would be awesome. I would love it. And on the way home, I'll never forget this. On the way home, I was nervous still from my interview, and I thought to myself, I am going to put the kibosh to that memory book project. because and by the way, if you have older children and you've heard this speech, I apologize. I think it might be a little bit lazy that I give the same story every year, but it's a good story. Because my first experience with this memory book project was awful. I was a dad, and I was teaching at North Central. And I was a coach at the time, and I remember the due date must have been somewhere in December at that time, because my son, it was like 8:30 at night, and I was sitting in this little sitting area that we have in our kitchen where I used to live, and he says to me, Dad, can we go to Walmart? I need to get a binder. And I had just come off a hard practice, and it was a long day, and I didn't, I remember, I had no idea what this memory book project was at this time. I was not teaching it. And I said, well, Alex, can it just wait for tomorrow? I mean, I don't feel like going to Walmart tonight. And he said, well, I kind of need it because I have to turn something in tomorrow. And so then the interrogation started, and I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you have to turn in? And he said, well, we've been working on this project, blah, 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 and can I get some pictures? And now my wife is awake, and there might have been some profanity in the house. And so we find out it's this great big project that the kids have been working on. And then he says, and remember, I'm not very happy at this moment. And then he says, Dad, you have to write me a letter. And no, you don't have to raise your hand, parents in here, but how many people, when your son or daughter said to you, you have to write me a letter, how many of you said, well, what does the letter have to be about? And then my son looks at me and goes, I don't know. So now I have to get into this nostalgic, sentimental phase while writing this letter to my son that I have no idea what it's going to be about and what the guidelines of the project are. And then I find out there's going to be this big social where his memory book is going to be on display in front of the whole community, and I was just livid. I was not very happy. So my first reaction for the memory book was, I don't remember, I was going to put the kibosh to it. So I did the dance my first year here. We did the personal narrative in the high school years and the middle school years, and I because I believe in writing, of course, as a language teacher, But I still was gonna not do the whole, turn in the whole memory book. So Mr. Cross and I were coaching girls basketball at the time, and we took the basketball team to UWGB to watch a UWGB girls game. So I had a cart full of high school girls, and I told them this. I said, girls, that memory book project is not going to be going on anymore. And if looks could kill, I would be dead right now. Because they all looked at me and said, you can't wreck that project. I still take my book out to this day and look at it when I'm feeling down. And I'm so glad that I kept the project around, because it is my favorite project to grade. And it is so powerful to reread some of the writing and to read your letters to your children and your grandchildren, and it is so, it reminds me that there is power in writing, and there's power in thoughts, and there's power in ideas, and it is just awesome. It takes a long time to grade them, but the excitement this year, when they were turning their books in, and they were looking at each other's books, and they were talking about it, and they were talking about how they cried when they read the letters, and how words can't explain how awesome that day was when they turned their memory books in. It was so great and rewarding as a teacher. I want to thank, I don't think Mrs. Edberg is here right now, but I know this is her project. She created this project. What do you think, Mrs. Nash, 25 years ago, 30 years ago? And then Mrs. Nash continued it, and there were other teachers who continued it. So I can't take credit for this project. It was created a long time before I was here, but it's just been a really, really rewarding experience for me to be a part of this. I can't even express how happy I am on this day, and watching all the parents leaping through the books out there. And I'm a little bit getting emotional, so I'm forgetting what I'm going to say. So thank you again for coming and being part of this, and thank you, students, for doing this. And first hour, your code for your quiz today is on Google Classroom. And then boys and girls in 8th grade, your memory books are yours now. And so I'm going to ask Mr. Kleiman in 4 years from now, because he's going to be the one that gets all the graduation invitations, the likable teacher. And I'm going to ask him if you are putting your memory books on display at your graduation parties, because I know that's the first thing I look for when I go to graduation parties, to see the memory books. So again, thank you for coming today, and just again, 8th graders, take your memory books when you're done.